Welcome back to Conquest of Ea. And today I thought I'd do a video about the new scenarios that Para Bellum Games put out for Conquest: The Last Argument of Kings. And this is to replace their organized play pack that they had out before. And when I started playing Conquest, I love the miniatures, I love the lore, like the backstory of all the factions were so interesting. I had a tough time deciding which one I actually wanted to play. And then I played some games, and I just loved the rules and how it felt, like a game of chess, very balanced, and the decisions that I made had direct consequences or benefits on what happened on the tabletop. But the only thing I kind of didn't like was the scenarios. They felt pretty simple, stand here, score points, first person to 10 wins. It made for some really quick games, in my opinion, and games that didn't often go all the way to the 10 rounds. So I was really, really excited to see back in October when Para Bellum released new organized play scenarios for Conquest. And I took a look at them, and immediately, even before playing them, just reading over it, I was like, this is an awesome organized play document. I can absolutely see where Para Bellum was going as far as this is the document they want you to use and the scenarios they want you to use in like a tournament setting. So my wargaming background is mainly from playing competitive 40K. I started back in at the end of 7th edition, and I still play in 40K tournaments now. And as the missions got more complex in 40K and there's more agency on the player to decide how they're going to score their points on the table, that just made the game better, in my opinion. It really makes player skill matter even more, and knowing how to play your army even more by getting the most amount of points you can in a certain situation. And I think with these new missions, Para Bellum kind of went that way by making the missions a little more complicated than just hey, stand here, score points if you have more stands in this certain spot. And by bringing in that extra depth and complexity, they've really opened up a whole new play style for armies, and they've opened up a whole new meta, I would say. I mean, the game is very small right now, and it's still a new community, so we don't really know what the meta is. But it's going to be really interesting to find out, as these missions get played more and more, and Conquest events start happening and grow bigger and bigger, which I definitely think they will, just because the company is doing a great job of promoting their stuff and being responsive to the community. So let's take a look at the actual scenario pack, and we're just going to go right over it and see some things in it that I love, and maybe some things that I think could be done better. We'll see. But overall, I love it, so let's take a look. So the first thing you can see, I'm not even on the first page to start. That's great. You can actually find this by going to Para Bellum Games website, hitting on the game section, rules, and then this is under the Last Argument of Kings, under the core rules. It's all the way down at the bottom, right under the core rulebook. So they have a list, obviously, army list. Bring your army list. You decide on a points value. They recommend 2,000 points as the standard size, yada, yada, yada. The things we all know, right? Mainstay, that's the same. And so here's when we start to get a little different than we knew before, the organized play additional list building rules. So you can't have the same character stand more than 2 times. I think this got brought about by, the Spires list that I saw. I forget what event it was, but they had, 3 Biomancers, and just that amount of healing scares me. I mean, 2 Biomancers is still good, right? But it's good that Para Bellum sees people taking so many, spamming those characters and saying, that's not really what we intended, and fixed it right away, basically. And then character stands have the option to be on foot or mounted, are still considered to be the same entry. This, as a 100 Kingdoms player, just means, my mounted Noble Lord and my foot Noble Lord are the same entry, so I can't, use both of their supremacy abilities. And then you can't have the same regiment entry more than 8 times, which I don't know right now in the game if that was an issue, but it definitely could have been, right? 40K brings up the rule of 3, and then you can't have the same thing more than 8 times. And then we're going to go into setting up the battlefield, and it kind of tells you how they want you to set up the terrain. So no terrain can be on any objective marker, which is good, an objective zone marker, so even in the entire zone. And then terrain should be 9 inches apart, and it shouldn't be any bigger than 9 by 6. And then it actually even tells you, it goes so far as to tell you must include 2 pieces of terrain with obscuring and obstructing, and to keep the game table fairly symmetrical so it's fair. That's really cool that they did this. A lot of, like even Games Workshop didn't do this for a long time. Just recently they posted what their table should look like on a tournament, and terrain has a huge effect on the game, so the way the TO sets up the tabletop should be controlled in some way by the game maker, in my opinion. So we're actually also adding, it looks like, zonal terrain rule, which isn't in the actual rule book. And then the zonal terrain with this special rule does not allow line of sight to be drawn through it, and then stands that are on it can draw line of sight to enemy residents and they can see them. So this just allows, because I don't believe in the original rulebook, or the rulebook that's currently being used now, that there's any, like, you stand in behind a forest, you were still completely visible. The only thing that really stopped you from being shot at by a range unit was, you know, being behind something bigger than you, or they didn't have line of sight because of other enemy regiments. So this is a good way that TOs can put stuff out there so that, you know, the game doesn't devolve into, you know, which gun line shoots first. And so we'll skip down to here. There's reinforcements and talks about assigning your character stands before the game. But then we get to the objective markers and zones. So before, the game just had the objective zones that we're all familiar with, the 6, 9, or 12 inches diameter that you have to have more character stands in. But they added, even to the objective zones, they added, this cannot happen during the first 3 rounds of the game. Lights, non-monster stands still don't count for seizing them, but they can stop your opponent from scoring if you have more light stands around the objective zone than your opponent does of their stands. It's really cool that during the first 3 rounds of the game that these can't be scored. That just stops, you know, like the Wadroon Raptor list from flooding the board and starting on turn 1 and scoring a ton of points, and you just can't catch up. That game obviously wouldn't be very fun for anyone. So it's awesome that they had some foresight and saw that, and that first 3 rounds of the game now, you can look at that as like your deployment phase to try and maneuver and even get some early fighting done to clear off objectives maybe, or, you know, see what your enemy's going to do so you can counter deploy into them and know that you have those first 3 rounds before you really need to start worrying about the score and what you have on objective zones. So then we're going to go down and look at the objective markers. And this is something new that they added with the new scenarios. So these are actually stands. The objective marker is a stand that's put on the battlefield that you're trying to attack, and your opponent's also going to have one that they're trying to attack, to do 3 wounds to it in order to take it off the table, and that's going to score you some amount of victory points. And typically in the scenarios, destroying these stands scores you more points at once than holding an objective zone, which makes sense because once the objective marker is destroyed, it's gone for the rest of the game. So that's your kind of incentive, or else, you know, why would I even bother waste my actions in the game to attack these things? I think this is an awesome addition. I haven't seen anything. I mean, there's other games that have like interactive objectives on the table, but in an action economy game like Conquest, it is going to raise some really interesting scenarios of, do I attack my enemy's regiments, or do I go after the objective markers that's going to score me points? And you can even see here on the right hand side, these objective markers have 3 wounds into defense of 3. So more than likely you're going to get a wound through, but maybe with bad dice rolling you don't even do that wound to it. And then it's not like you can even use your range attacks. You can only use range attacks against them from within 8 inches. So it's not like you can sit super far away and shoot, you know, militia bowmen that are 75 points at them. You're going to have to really commit some actions to destroying these things. So let's look around. They've gotten rid of the secondary objectives as we scroll down here, which I kind of like the secondary objectives, but they definitely weren't balanced, I don't think. I think like the 100 Kingdoms was like, you score some points for charging first this round, which was really easy to do with knights. I think in the old mission pack secondary objectives were something I would have liked to seen stay, but now with this new one, with all the layers of scoring there is, I'm totally fine with this. And now we get into the first scenario. So you can see here, it's the 6x4 table broken into 12x12 squares, and the A and B are your objective markers that player 2 is going to try and attack objective marker A, and player 1 down at the bottom is going up to try and attack objective marker B, but while at the same time in this mission, there is 6-inch objective zones that they're trying to hold at the same time. So this is 6, 7, 8 places on the battlefield you need to be, and a lot of us, have played 2,000-point games of Conquest where you have 2 characters and just 8 units. So you're obviously not going to be on all these at the same time, right? Unless you're playing a heavy MSU list. And then we can look down here at during the phase of each battle rounds from 40k. I got to get my brain out of that. It's going to take a while, I think. Players can earn 3 victory points for every enemy objective marker they have destroyed during the round. So when you destroy that objective marker, that's going to get you 3 VP once during the game after you've destroyed it. But then you got to take into account those are actions you're using to attack it and destroy it. And then you're getting 2 victory points for the objective zones you're seizing, which you can do obviously multiple times because those objective zones don't go away over this mission. And then there's even more bullet points of scoring, and a lot of the missions like this have it where if you hold 3 or more objectives, 2 or more objectives, you're getting bonus points. And on this one, you can get 4 VPs if you're holding 4 or more, and then 2 VPs if you slain the enemy warlord. So these missions can be very high scoring, especially if you're constantly holding 4 of the objectives. You're dominating the table, you're obviously going to score a ton of points and beat your opponent. So we'll move on to the last stand. The last one just had 2 objective markers that were controlled by each player, while this one, Last Stand, has actually 4 objective markers and just 2 objective zones, but the objective zones are bigger. And you'll notice that the reinforcement zones are on the shorter table edges. I believe this is the only one in the scenario pack where the reinforcement zone is on the short table edge. You're moving in towards, so you're going to have less, width to deploy your forces on. And here's a really wild scenario. The one thing, the downside, I guess, about these is now you need more stands to create these objective markers, and because they're actual stands, they have to be that certain dimension. And Para Bellum sells extra stands, and extra stands are definitely available out there. It just, unfortunately, they don't come extra like other war games like bases. So you end up with a ton of bases, like Marvel Crisis Protocol, for example. I feel like I have a whole pile of extra bases which I could use for objective markers. And hopefully maybe Para Bellum in the future will just throw in or maybe sell an objective marker pack that has like something cool like the original starter set with those circular objectives, but in the actual right size. And this one you can see how they're colored A, B, and they're red or blue. And it's because the objective markers A are friendly to player 1, so player 1 can't attack those objective markers. And then in this one you can see A and B are the objective markers are friendly to player 1, player 2, but the other 2 objective markers here in the center, anyone can attack those, it looks like. And as you can see while we go through here, actually this is the first time I've noticed this. I was just about to say there's different sizes of the objective zones and the objective markers are in different places, but this is the first time I'm noticing that the middle of the table here is a no reinforcement zone, so no matter how far you move up, your reinforcement line can't push past that first 12 inches outside your deployment zone. So that's pretty cool, that a little twist in there. I wonder if I missed anything else while, the first time I was scrolling through here. Let's go to the next scenario 6 and see if anything pops out at me. Not really. Other than this one has the 2 objective zones, and if you're attacking like this all the way back in your opponent's deployment zone, you're probably doing pretty good. I feel like off balance, those farther, like, objective markers inside your enemy's deployment zone are never going to get touched, just because it takes 3 actions to even get rid of one of those, and it's going to take a lot of actions to get over there. You're probably better off fighting in the middle here. And scenario 7, I believe there's 8 scenarios total, so we're getting the end here. This is actually one that doesn't have any objective markers. I played this the other day against Wargame and got absolutely destroyed, but this was, more like the older scenarios with no objective markers. You just have to stand in a certain area. But even just not being able to score until that 4th round made a huge difference when my Wargame opponent could kind of deploy his whole forces and not worry about my faster cavalry or my lighter units coming on first to go up and hold those objective zones and score before he could get a chance to get there. And the last one, scenario 8, is Bulwark. Again, all these objective markers out in the middle will definitely be hotly contested. One thing I forgot to mention about the objective markers is the friendly ones act as a friendly regiment to you, and the enemy ones act as an enemy regiment. So no moving through it. I don't believe it blocks line of sight, but it can really create some scenarios where your opponent can hide behind it from a charge and maybe maneuver around it to charge. So like I said, I'm really excited about playing these new missions and seeing what kind of meta is created out there. Just off the very top of my head, looking at it, there's so many objective zones and markers that I think, personally, my 100 Kingdoms list, I played a veteran style list with only 2 characters and 8 regiments. I think that might need to change, just because there's a lot of missions out there where there's a tiny objective worth a little bit of points, maybe 2 VP per round, kind of close to your deployment zone. And I don't really want to leave 6 men-at-arms or, household knights back there to cap it and score it for me, and my light shooting units don't do it. And then armies like Spires, who have medium shooting units who are happy to sit back there with their 28-inch range in the marksman clones, that's a huge bonus for them. So it'll be interesting to see, what on each scenario 2 changes, what different army playstyles can do. And I'm really looking forward to playing more and more of these missions in the future. Our first Conquest event in my local meta is coming up, kind of just a casual meet and play, because the game is just getting started around here on November 19th. And I'll definitely be playing these missions with my 100 Kingdoms at 2,000 points, so I'll make a video after, say how the event went and how the missions went down with everyone and how we enjoyed them. So thanks for listening, everybody, and if you want more Conquest content, definitely subscribe and comment down on the channel here what you want to see in the future. I'm definitely up for covering whatever you guys want to hear about, and I'm just going to cover things that catch my interest in the Conquest world as I play more and more of this awesome war game. Thanks for listening, everybody, and have fun in your Conquest games out there.